Take it away, Ken. All right. So hopefully you're in the right session. This is Education Session 17. I promise not to pitch to you. My name is Ken Nelson. I am with IBM. I'm part of the Mobile First SWAT team. Sounds like a really fancy title, but it's not. Basically, I'm the last guy on the sales team before our customers get to engineering. So I'm really smart. That's one of the things I do. I used to work at SAP doing kind of a similar job. Prior to that, I spent about just over 15 years as an independent software consultant, specialized in developing mobile and web-based applications. And that's kind of why I'm here today. I've been through the process of developing these applications, deploying them to customers. Interestingly enough, when you think about mobile application development, you may not think, you may be thinking just smartphones and things like that. I was actually part of the user experience team in designing the first touchscreen diabetes infusion pump. And what's interesting about that is, from a usability standpoint, when we first went and tried the application out on some users doing some FDA studies to make sure that we weren't going to, kill somebody, we found that we had 5 catastrophic errors with our flows. Catastrophic error means, well, we killed somebody. And so we went back to the drawing board and we rethought how the user uses the actual device and what makes sense to them. We really got into their minds, asked them a lot of questions, started figuring out different types of moments where we could interject some things that would help them with their diabetes or with their disease and manage it more effectively. When we went back and retested another sample test group, we had 0 catastrophic errors. So that's the power of really understanding who your user is and making sure that you develop something that's useful for them. So patting myself on the back. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we got here. How did we get into this mobile mind shift that we're in right now? Talk about what we have, a litmus test. We're moving from the consumers into the enterprise and what the consumer expects as an enterprise user. You'll notice that I'm holding my cell phone right here, and everybody's like, well, probably going, what are you doing there? That's actually my clicker too. So it will advance my slides. I am an Apple guy through and through, have been since the little rainbow Apple logo. Love the products. I like things that just work, and I like to design things that just work, so that's why I'm there. Then we're going to drill down into some best practices. We have a few recommendations for you. It's very small, fine print, so if you're in the back of the room, you're not going to see it. Maybe move forward. And then we'll talk a little bit, if we have time, about the art of the possible. So this is kind of a tiny little pitch portion of it. It's just some apps that we've developed at IBM that kind of show the power of mobile in the government area that you guys can get some ideas from and see what we've done. Okay, sound good? All right. So in 2003, we got a new pope, right? Was it Benedict, I believe, or something like that? And you'll see down here in the lower right-hand corner, there's somebody with a flip phone taking a picture, grabbing that moment for all eternity so that he could go back to his family and show that he was there and saw this. Pretty interesting, right? Everybody's kind of looking around, just waiting for the Pope to show up. In 2013, same thing happened, but it was a little different. This is the mobile mind shift. This is what you are dealing with. This is who you're designing applications and building applications for. Everybody has a phone, especially in North America. Everybody has a phone. Almost everybody even has an iPad. My 8-year-old son has one, so and he takes pictures with it all the time. They're used to going and capturing those moments and then sending them out to thousands of friends to let them know what's going on. So they're social, right? It's a new way of thinking. You need to start wrapping your head around that. Now, out on the App Store, there's a little over 1 million apps in iTunes. Over 80% of those apps happen to be games, so we can get rid of those. Of the remaining approximately 200,000 apps, less than 10% of them had as high as a 4-star rating. So we're going to talk about how you move to at least get to that 4-star rating and hopefully to a 5-star rating. What's interesting about the 5-star rated apps, they update those apps 12 to 18 times a year, continuously improving those apps, always making incremental changes. It's not about going out and trying to deliver everything to the user right off the bat. These are not These mobile projects that you start working on are not, the typical IT project. They're not 18 months long, 3 years long, millions of dollars. They're small, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. That's a pretty big project. If it goes to 12, you might want to break that down. Get incremental exposure to your product, to the customers, and get them using the app. So again, I said, how did we get here? Well, who here remembers watching the TV to try and figure out, what's going on as far as news or weather? Yeah, right? CBS comes on, we had to tweak the rabbit ears, turn the knob. None of that exists anymore. But to get the news. Today, I can go ahead and get that on a mobile device. What about the maps that you folded out? Who here is an Auto Club member? I am, right? I had a whole stack of maps in my glove box. I also had 2 or 3 Thomas guides, one for each county when I was driving around. Old-time sales guys will tell you they had stacks of them. What they would do is they would go to Hertz, pick up the little map there, and they would collect them. I talked to one guy who still has his. He's got over 150 maps that he used to carry around with him all the time. Roads would change, wouldn't be updated. Traffic, forget about it. You had no idea what traffic was until you hit it, right? So now you're driving along, you're going from the alfalfa fields in Central California, and you want to get to San Francisco Bay Area. You can do that now on your mobile device. And you can get updated traffic on it as well. And this happened to me last night coming from San Francisco, it can automatically reroute you. So it's using intelligence to get you to your destination much faster. Again, a mobile moment. Who here has ever hailed a taxi? Running down the street trying to find it, whistling? That doesn't work, by the way, usually. And then it starts raining on you. I don't know, can you guys see the rain? I guess you guys can't see the rain. It's raining right now. That's the worst. New York City in the rain trying to hail a taxi. Then along came this little company that took that user, that customer looking for a ride to the airport and matched that up with car services. That was the start of Uber, right? They were a destructive technology. They came in, they changed the world, or the way the world thinks about getting from point A to point B when traveling. Now they've gone and they got UberX, so citizen drivers can go out there and drive around. In fact, I was just in New Jersey and I had a couple of UberX rides. Pretty amazing. They're even going so far as to the point where they're going to start tackling UPS and FedEx and start delivering packages for you using these cars that, are not doing anything. Pretty interesting business model. Couple of great apps there. In fact, I just came back from a conference where the guy that runs the driver software for Uber was there, and they're going to be doing some amazing things for the drivers, so it's going to be interesting. But you'll notice all the little cars there. You can see right there who's coming to pick you up, when they're going to get there, get an estimate of how much it's going to cost to get from point A to point B. I think this might be my favorite slide. Oh, the sound's not working. Oh. All right. So they're supposed to be playing a sound right here. So remember listening to a radio and having to wait for a repeat to figure out who's singing the song? Yeah, then along came Shazam. 18% of music purchases on a mobile device come from Shazam. Huge, huge. It's a very big company. All right, so how did we get there? What's kind of driving all this? What's all these different apps have in common? Well, obviously, one of the first things that they have in common, is personal convenience. It's all about getting information at the right time, in the right place. So it's kind of contextual. It's all about me. It's things that I'm interested in. Powered by analytics. You take a look at Uber, you take a look at Shazam, you take a look at they're all powered by analytics. Even maps, right, with the traffic on it, it's all got analytics behind it, trying to figure out how to get you to your destination in time. Mobile first design. So most of these apps that are coming out these days and most of these personal experiences that you're seeing right now all started with a mobile app. And then they started going to developing either a web or a desktop presence if need be. So there's something to think about as well. And then finally, somehow it enhances my life. And it does. I can now, when I travel, I know what the weather's going to be. I know before I go somewhere if I need to pack a jacket or an umbrella. I know if I'm going to go outside whether I need a sweater right away or not, if I'm going to need it in an hour or something along those lines. So how does this all translate into the enterprise or into your organizations? Well, we've been working with Apple, and we put together kind of a litmus test to kind of understand what are the common characteristics of apps that are out in the enterprise and what do they need to be able to do. And this enterprise litmus test that we have first solves an industry pain point. Whatever that happens to be, it's always, there's some sort of pain point that we need to address. If you take a look at your use cases that you have right now, your desktop or browser-based use cases, you probably have around 1,000 use cases, I would guess, right? For each one of those use cases, you have 3 to 4 mobile apps, or the potential for 3 to 4 mobile apps, just in one organization. It's a massive amount of apps that can be developed. And we're not even talking about going out and doing consumer-facing stuff. This is just inside the enterprise. Powered by analytics, obviously that makes sense, right? If I have some turbine spinning or something like that and it needs a maintenance cycle or it's got more hours going on and I can see that a bearing's being thrown and the likelihood of this thing shutting down based on past predictive analytics, I can determine that I need to do some maintenance right away. That works out in my advantage because it saves my downtime, it saves my cost in repairing that piece of machinery. Again, it's a mobile-first design. Not everything you're going to do needs to be looking at what you currently have right now and saying, okay, we're just going to mobilize that. That's not necessarily a good approach. A better approach is to go and take a look at the journey maps that you have now. If you don't have journey maps, I highly recommend putting them together so you know what is as far as how people go through your system and leverage your system to help them out. Look at those journey maps. Find areas where you can start inserting mobile moments to make life better. Take a look at Starbucks, right? Starbucks doesn't start and stop when you enter the store. Starbucks has an app that they're looking and hoping that you're interacting with them 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a couple days before, and a couple days after. You take a look at the airlines, that's what they want too. They want you to buy your tickets using their mobile app a couple weeks before. They're going to go ahead and let you know that you can check in a day before. You're going to go and check in, present your ticket at security checkpoint, and then get on the plane. And then a day later, they're going to send you a notification saying, how was your experience? Right? So these are all things to think about. It doesn't just start and stop with that one moment. And then empowers your employees. Right? Trust your employees. Get that information in their hands when it makes sense to them. Right? Keep them from having to go back to their desk to look something up. That's the biggest one that I see, right? All right. So how do we get there? So from our point of view, we have three key areas where we think governments must focus on. And one of them is to provide citizens and organizational stakeholders with a secure interactive access to information and business services. Secure is the key one there. But don't get overzealous about it. This is just an endpoint. Like no other endpoint, it's no different than any other endpoint that you have. So don't get too carried away with it. If you're not doing mobile app because you don't think you can secure this device, you can forget about that. There's plenty of ways to secure that. You can go talk to the vendors that are out in the exhibit hall, and there's plenty of ways to do that. All right, so the next one is to increase government employee productivity through extending business processes to the mobile devices. And by the way, the reason I'm reading the slides the way they are right now is because I know some of you in the back may not be able to see it because it's a little washed out. All right. So again, make those employees more productive. Finally, enable mobile adoption and development through establishing relevant policy, strategy, and governance frameworks. First thing you need to do is put together a steering committee, right? Start putting and identifying what your mobile strategy is going to be. What are the rules behind the devices and how they're used within your organization? And it's not just IT that you include in this. You need to include the stakeholders themselves, the people that are actually going to be using the apps as well. If you think you're smart enough to know what your user is going to do and what they want, you're not. Trust me, I've gone down that rabbit hole numerous times, and I think I'm a pretty smart guy, and users have proved me wrong each and every time I've done that. So if we drill down into those citizen organizational stakeholders, we can provide business services made available on mobile devices, personalization, right? Things about me and how I interact. You can use analytics to actually help them figure out how to do their job more effectively. Real-time notifications get pushed out to a mobile device. You can even use things like beacons for indoor location monitoring and tracking, so those geolocated applications, there's more and more of those coming along. You can even use things like beacons to do inventory of devices, so I could have a little tape beacon on this thing and I can inventory this stand just simply by going and putting my phone next to it. Oh yeah, it's right here. By the way, here's the GPS location. And then two-way communication and on-spot service requests, right? So I should be able to, if I've got a help desk situation, be able to immediately get two-way communication with the help desk and support on my device in real time. Make your employees a little more productive. A couple of them that are key here. So the anytime, anywhere access is key. This whole notion of 9 to 5, it's not there anymore. In fact, if you take a look at millennials, and they're going to be the next part of the working force, something like 80% of them will not take a job if they do not have a mobile app. There was a recent study that was done. It's crazy. Millennials are more likely to go and text you on a phone, or use their phone to text you than to call you. They're very social, and they usually have about 5 or 6 different social apps that they interact with on a continual basis. So if you're talking about consumer-based and facing apps, and you want to get into that millennials market space, you need to make sure that you integrate social as well. Empower your employees to make decisions. Basically, give them that information that they need on this device so that they can make the decisions in a timely fashion. And then I talked about social engagement, and I believe the state's already kind of going down the path of BYOD, which opens up a whole nother can of worms, you know, especially from a development standpoint. When you start looking at native development versus hybrid development or mobile web development. Everybody familiar with those 3 terms? What the difference is? Okay, good. I see less and less native development going on these days. In fact, 50% of the apps over the last year that have gone up to the Apple App Store are hybrid. So it's a combination of HTML5 JavaScript with a native shell around it. And to the third point, drive the evolution of mobile technology with policies that support mobile adoption and development. And this includes putting together policies that help educate your field people when they come on board, like when you're on the onboarding process, get them that education early and upfront. Make sure that you have a strategy that's centered around services, security, and APIs are huge. There's a couple reasons why. One, from a mobile development standpoint, if I can just go out and take a look at the services that are available to me and then begin consuming them in a way that makes sense for my app that I'm building. And this may include doing things like a mashup. You guys familiar with mashups, where I take 2 or 3 different data sources and I combine them together? And then mobilizing that information so that when I send it over the wire to the mobile device here, it's not sucking up a whole bunch of bandwidth. And again, governance, 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 governance. All right, so some use cases that you might be working on in government, obviously IT, finance and accounting, budget spending, being able to have a dashboard as a manager to sit there and know exactly where my budget is moment to moment, powered by some sort of analytics on a back-end service. Research and development, marketing, sales, supply chain, how are my vendors getting me the products that I need to do my job? These are all broad use case areas that you can start drilling down into and provide mobile services for. Now, the state's done a pretty good job. I went out to the site, took a look at all the mobile apps out there. There were close to 70 apps, 80 apps, something like that. Most of them were mobile web apps, right? They're all browser-based apps. But I thought it was kind of cool that I could go out, and if I want to go fishing, I could find a new lake to go fishing at. The lottery. If I want to check the lottery numbers, I can download the lottery app. I can even find a job using a mobile app that's on the state site. But when I looked at a lot of them, there were a lot of one-star ratings, if there were ratings at all. And I was actually more concerned about the fact that there weren't any ratings on some of these apps than I was about the 1 stars at the moment. And the reason why is because when you build a mobile application, you want to get these ratings. You want to get people talking about your apps. And the only way to do that is to be proactive about that. So how many people have a mobile app that every once in a while says, hey, you want to rate my app? Right? Do those types of things. Get that in there. Start getting that feedback going so that you can improve these apps. Users will tell you what they want. Believe me, they will tell you what they want. In fact, they will tell you more than what you want to hear. So how do we go from that 1-star rating to that 5-star rating? Well, there's a number of things that you can do. One, obvious one is start that feedback loop now, right? Start releasing apps in a continuous basis. Start improving them. Start making those incremental changes as they need to happen. Start getting some analytics behind some of these apps that you have, right? So if I'm looking for a job, and I have been to your app before, and I have filled out these types of job requests, it'd be really nice if it would sit there in the back end and say, oh, Ken, I see that you have been looking for director of IT positions. We just found 5 more of them for you. Would you like to see them right now? Push those out there. Let me be the first ones to respond to those. Very helpful types of situations. So the 5 biggest challenges you will face when you build and deploy mobile apps. Securing your app is going to be something that's going to be a challenge for you, and it's because you're going to overthink it. It's not as complex as it was 3, 4, 5 years ago. A lot of the software vendors out there right now provide services and provide capabilities that allow you to secure your application all the way from this endpoint all the way down through your data. So when you're looking for a vendor, that's one of the things that you're going to be looking for. Rapid and continuous delivery. This is over and over again. So it's put into place DevOps, right? So I check in my source code, it automatically builds it, it sends a notification to my beta testers, they test the application, they provide feedback that goes into my bug tracking system, I'm able to make modifications to it quickly, and in a very short amount of time I'm able to get my app polished and enough that I have a minimum viable product to send out and move on. Unpredictable requirements, scalability requirements for data. This is probably one of the biggest things that we see anymore when we're talking to customers, is they're not sure that the on-prem solutions are going to scale for them, especially during periods that spike, right? So for the franchise tax board, I'm assuming April 15th is a huge spike time for them, or at least that month before and after probably are. Do you want to have 11 months worth of data processing power sitting there being underutilized and then not be able to perform when the spike actually occurs? So there's ways around that. Things like cloud technology, both from a platform services and delivery paradigm, as well as from the data itself. There's tons of solutions that are out there that can move that data closer to the user and also be able to be elastic enough that it expands and contracts as the needs dictate. Delivering contextual apps. So these are apps that know about me, know where I'm at, know what I'm doing, and know a lot about me in general and how I do things when I'm doing them. But contextual apps like beacons, so if you take a look at location-based tracking, you've got everything from GPS, right, the satellites out in the sky, down to your cell phone towers. They're all tracking what's going on already. You got your Wi-Fi that's locally here that can, again, start to narrow things down. You have low-energy Bluetooth devices like these that can act as kind of a transmitter or communication device. And then you've got iBeacons, where as I walk past something, it can send me a message saying, hey, you just walked past here, you're doing this. By the way, you might want to think about doing X. And then managing and troubleshooting those deployed applications. This gets back into that, getting that feedback from those customers. Every app that you build should have some way for your customers to provide you direct feedback. It's much nicer if they can provide me feedback through my app than going out to the app store and complaining about me. Mobile device management does not secure your organization alone. In fact, in my personal opinion, I worked for a small company that did a lot of this for a while. In my personal opinion, I'm not a big fan of MDM, and only because people use it as a crutch. There's more to it than that. Just because I secured the device doesn't mean that my data is secure. It really doesn't. Particularly with my app. And what about the situations where I have an application where I can't put MDM on that particular device? So if I have a vendor or a supplier or a consumer using my app, but I still need to secure the information, MDM just doesn't work in those situations. So you need to make sure that you have solutions that may do the MDM portion of it, the mobile device management, right? Setting up my VPN, setting up my, which is another story, setting up my Wi-Fi access, making sure I have the policies on the device as far as the types of apps that I can use depending on what your rules are that you've set up. Setting up my email is probably the biggest advantage I see to MDM. So those are all things to think about when you're looking at that. Now, a little bit about VPN. If you put this whole device on VPN, right, even with iOS's per app VPN, you're still at risk. And the reason why is because I can have an app on here that can detect that you just went on VPN that has a little bit of malware in it, and now I've got access to your back end. Okay, so it's something to think about when you're going device level VPN. 21st century solutions facilitate rapid iterative approach. I've talked about this a little bit already. It's imperative. It really is a new way of thinking about how you develop and deliver your software. It's very iterative, it's very fast, and it's something that you can start easing your way into, but start putting in those DevOps to help you do that, to start doing some of the processing automatically on the back end to help you out. But it's going to allow you to quickly respond to issues. All of a sudden, you've got a security threat. How do I push out my apps? Do I rely on people downloading the fix from the App Store if they've turned off automatic app delivery? They're still using an older version of the app? What if I made a change to the back end that I need to monitor what's going on? Am I using a piece of middleware that helps shield me from that? So these are all things that you need to think about. How do I get those apps out there quickly and efficiently? And I talked briefly about this iterative cycle. This is kind of what it looks like, design and develop. And as I'm designing my application or develop my application, I am doing daily builds, if not hourly builds, and doing the integration points. I'm instrumenting my apps so that they have built-in analytics and built-in feedback. I'm testing my applications, whether it's through beta testers or a select group of users that are out there. Scan and certify your applications. Go ahead and find out if you've got errors in your code that could be potential security vulnerabilities. There's tons of software out there that can go and look at your code and say, hey, here's all your problems. You need to go fix them before you release that. How are you going to deploy your applications? Are you going to deploy them through the App Store? Are you going to deploy them through a local app store, or iTunes or Google Play? How are you going to manage your apps? How are you going to understand how your users are using your apps, right? If I've got a long form that I've got to fill out, and I'm going through and I'm filling out the app, and it looks pretty good, the form, I got everything there, and I pushed a button and I think I'm done. Maybe I am or maybe I'm not. We had a recent thing with a bank in Turkey where that exact situation was happening. They were going down, filling out the form, and they just weren't converting the users. They didn't understand why. They were able to apply basically a hit map to the form itself and see where the users were getting to and where they were stopping at. And they were able to determine that they just weren't scrolling down far enough and hitting the finish my application button. They'd hit some sort of submit button that was on there. So there was some problem with the app itself. They made a few slight changes and they were able to increase their conversion rate by 300%, just by that one little tweak. So it's good to understand how your users are using your app and how they're not using your app. Gain insight. This is all through the analytics and getting that feedback system going, and then you get to do it all over again. And oh, by the way, this is, a 6-week cycle. Fun. I talked a little bit earlier about journey maps. This is what one might look like. You'll see on the left-hand side we have our persona. So we sit there and say, Jane. We actually give the person a name. We give them a little bit of background. We make things up about what we've seen out in the user community and what their fears are, what their phobias are, all sorts of things. We kind of get into kind of a psychological assessment of the person. And this is what's going to help us determine how they might move through a particular journey to do something. And we have tons of these that are out there, but journey maps, if you're not familiar with journey mapping or design thinking concepts, I highly, highly recommend it. It can give you insight into your customers and your apps that you've never had before. Scalable solutions need to leverage cloud technology. If you take a look at what's going on with your mobile apps out there, Uber's a big prime example. They're a big cloud-based company. Mobile and cloud just go together, right? Because you don't know what your scalability needs, particularly in consumer-facing apps. You can do things like leverage hybrid technologies where I've got either on-prem or a private cloud or on-prem and a public cloud so that you know what your minimum needs are and you can maintain them internally, but as you start to spike, you can spin up cloud services to help support that and then turn them off when you don't need them anymore, saving you money and maintenance and employee headaches. So there's a lot of things that you can do there, but take a look at cloud technologies and start implementing those as well. Contextual apps, I talked about this as far as GPS and iBeacons and being proactive versus reactive. Knowing when a situation, something's going to happen before it actually happens. Contextual applications can allow you to do that. User feedback, crash reporting, and analytics. There's tons of software out there that can determine when your app just goes bye-bye, crashes. The problem with that is if you don't have an application that tracks that for you, it can get that information back to you, you don't necessarily know that it happened. And so all of a sudden you're looking at the reviews on your application site and you say, app crashes all the time. And you're like, well, I have no idea. Well, there is software out there that can actually tell you that not only did you crash, but here's the crash, and here's where it crashed, and you can better determine how to fix that. So those are things to look into as well. And never stop improving your app. Continually improve your app over and over again. Always, even if it's just a little something. You know, change the colors. I don't know what it is, but continually update those apps. People are very leery of apps that haven't been updated in a year. Here's a good question for you guys. So there's they say that something like 23 apps, the average person has 23 apps on their phone, and they probably use about half of them. I skew that number dramatically. I have about 100 on this phone, not this phone, but that phone I do. What do you think the average number of daily downloads a user performs is? Any idea? Wild guess. Don't be shy. I can't see anybody, so it really doesn't matter. 100 daily downloads? 20? 0. The average number of daily downloads for a particular user is 0. Why? Because most users already have the apps that they want, and there's nothing out there that's compelling enough to have them download something else. And I can tell you that's probably true, because I haven't downloaded a new app in probably 5 days. Again, I skew numbers, so, you know, but I take a look at my wife. She probably hasn't downloaded a new app in 3-4 months. Because there's nothing compelling, there's nothing out there that's saying, hey, you need to download this because it's going to make your life easier. There's a lot of opportunity for government to build applications that make my life easier and make me want to download them. This gets into the tiny letter portion of the presentation. I don't know if you guys can read that or not. Some key questions to consider when you're developing a mobile strategy. For instance, to what extent does your organization have a well-defined enterprise-wide mobile strategy? Who here has a mobile strategy? Anyone? Well-defined? All right. That's my point. How are you rolling out mobile apps already and you don't have a strategy for developing them, maintaining them, getting feedback, knowing how your users are using them? Do they even like them? Do they not like them? you need to start looking at your mobile strategy and putting that together, putting it down on paper. It doesn't mean that it's written in stone. You can always change your strategy later on down the road, but get something out there. Who is involved in your mobile governance? It is not, if you said that it's IT and IT only, it should not be IT and IT only. You need to get your stakeholders involved. And how does mobility drive business model innovation in your organization? So there's a whole bunch of things. I can, if you want, I have business cards. This is in a white paper. I know we're not supposed to pitch you, but there's some really good information in this thing. In the next 6 slides, go more in depth about answering these questions for you. So instead of reading this to you, if you're interested in this, stop by, I'll give you a business card. You can shoot me an email. I'm more than happy to make sure that you get that information. Because there really is some good information in there. And it comes from our Center of Competency for Mobility. And these guys are, all they do is research. That's all they do. I mean, it's not really product oriented, but there's some good information in there. So if you're interested, I'm going to skip the next few slides because, again, it's very tiny. We give you foundational recommendations. We give you accelerating recommendations for developing a mobile strategy, improving your customer experience and driving employee productivity, as well as, enabling your mobile environment. So again, if you're interested in getting more information on that, please come see me and I will get you that information. Because again, it's just too much. So now, let's, we got about 10 minutes left. Let's take a look at some stuff that we've done, right? These are all general applications that we've already developed, we've put out there. For us, these are what are called starter apps. So we can take this application with our solution set, plop it down in your environment, and you can tweak it and be up and running with some very sophisticated apps pretty quickly. So the first one, real quick. So 65% of government workers said they believe the number of mobile government workers will increase in the next 5 years. How many of you believe that? Less than 65%. Okay, so, and then 58% of state and local IT managers that were surveyed said their organization didn't have plans, tools, or support needed to manage a mobile workforce. How many believe that statement? Way more numbers. Alrighty then. So now that we're all on the same page, so we got this cool little app. It's called Incident Aware, and it's really designed for police forces. So something happens, natural disaster, or there's some big incident going on, or an accident, or whatever it is. An officer can be sent a notification, and they can see where everybody's at, where everything's cordoned off at. They can get some information about what's going on in the incident. And not only that, if they have the new Apple iWatch, which I'd be impressed if they have one because I'm still like 7 weeks before mine will ship. We do integrate with Apple Watch. So when they're driving at 95 miles an hour past me by, instead of looking like this, they can look, oh yeah, all right, cool. And I can see all the changes that are going on. That does happen to me, by the way. All right. So just a little bit more about it. It's revolutionizing the way police officers gain situational awareness. So again, it's what's going on in the field right there at that time. It's connected with GPS, so it's integrated with those GPS. It also has some analytics behind it to help the officers make better decisions on where to be and what to do. The next app that we have is based on this. 50% of their time spent for caseworkers can spend half their time on administrative tasks and getting to the clients. 50% of their time, that's a lot of time. We talked to a number of caseworkers, and they go into the office, they get their case files, they get their map, slap that on top, jump in their car, and they drive out to wherever they needed to do whatever work it happened to be. Then they'd write down all their notes, from their visit, and then they'd come back to the office, and then they'd type them in the computer. It's not really efficient, in my opinion. So we decided to build them an app. So this goes ahead, and if you got a case file, it's going to collect all your case information that's going on, who's in the house, what the issues are, if there are any issues. We have some analytics, again, built into this, so you can see over time period whether things are improving or not improving, if different factors that have been going on have affected certain change or not change, and those types of things. So this app, again, is another app that's out there. Now, These two apps that I showed you right here are part of the Apple-IBM partnership where we've committed to developing 100 apps or something along those lines in various different industries. So these are the first two that we have for government. We're looking to do some more, so if you're interested in being involved in that and helping drive the technology itself, we're always looking for people to work with on that. So, how do you join the conversation? My Twitter handle's Ken at IBM. I do tweet quite a bit, actually. I do blog, and I tweet about my blogs. That's what I do. But you can go to you can check us out on Twitter at IBM Mobile. You can look at us on Facebook, and as well as LinkedIn. There's lots of things going on. There's a few more websites there if you're interested in what we're doing, particularly in the government workspace. You can just go to ibm.com/government/mobile, and you'll see what we're doing there. And if you need to get a hold of me, my email address, ken.nelson@us.ibm.com. And yeah, that's it. If you guys have questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. I got 4.5 minutes. No questions. One question.
You mentioned journey maps a couple of times, and you alluded to them being, like you said, something to the effect of we provide them or they're available. Is there a web presence that has a list of these examples of journey maps?
Yeah, so the question is do we have a list, a web presence with a list of journey maps that's publicly available? No. We do have the journey maps. I mean, typically when I go out in the field and I'm doing my sales pitch, depending on who I'm talking to, I'll bring journey maps with me, because one of the things that I find with a number of organizations is they go, we just don't know what the use cases are. We don't know what they are. And so this is a great way to start a conversation. A better way to start, or to get further into that is, let's go build one. Let's take one of your existing processes, right, that is going on right now, and let's walk through it. We do that, no charge. I mean, that's just something we do. We like doing that. It's part of our design thinking stuff that we do. And it's invaluable. I had a customer at Sands Hotel. They came up to me and said, hey, they were doing event planning. They had a need for an app that was a checklist, basically, to do. Customer comes in, they want to rent out a room like this, they want it configured a certain way. So they would go and, okay, yeah, we do have availability. Okay, yeah, we do have the number of rooms, we can support the number of people that you're talking, let's start working through the rooms. Well, after we did the whole journey map of that whole process, we determined that actually a better app is an app that we can give the end user that can sit there and go, I want to have an event on this date with this many people, and it's going to be conference style, it's going to be classroom style, whatever, and they can sit there and say, yeah, we can go ahead and do that. Begin configuring the rooms. How many rooms do you need? What's the type of configuration? Once they got that, they could bring that information in and just finalize the order. They cut down their face time with the customer from the planning stage, which was really what their pain point was, their headache. They spent 3 to 4 hours with each customer just doing that initial, let's get the general hand around what you guys want to do stuff. They cut that down to 30 minutes. That's what this can do, because we were able to define where the mobile moment should actually be in the process. Did that help or hinder? Yeah, good, okay. Got time for one more? Is this helpful? All right, well, I appreciate your guys' time. I'll be here for the next 5 minutes or so if you guys need additional information or business card or whatever. Thank you.